Okay, welcome back. If you haven't had enough assessments yet, you will have after this. But the good news is we're on the last of the assessments. So we're going to move through these last three and have you do two of them first, kind of together, is the way that they come up. It's the DISC personality assessment is first for session 7. We're on session 7. And so this DISC personality test is one you may have taken personality tests in the past, quite honestly. I know I did through work and different things that I did out there in the professional world. They give personality tests. This one's not incredibly different than others where they try to kind of put you in one of 4 categories. I don't. I don't swear by any of these personality tests to say this is what defines you.
I do.
But I would say it's a great indicator. It's a great thing to just bring a little bit more awareness for you. And so I want to just give you some ground rules, if you will, before you go through and take the assessments. And then we'll have you press pause, do the assessments. You're going to do them on your phone or device through the QR code that's in the book. And then you'll come back to the video after that. So before you leave to go take the assessments, I just want to give you a couple of good pointers because we see people struggle with some of the same things. Go with your first answer, your gut answer, like right off the bat. Do not waste time. If you are an overthinker, this is you'll be gone for a while. People do it every time on the retreats.
You'll attempt to manipulate the test.
Yes, we try to encourage them to go quicker, but some people just tend to overthink, and so you'll get into this headspace of, wait, is this me at work or me as a dad or me at home with my my wife, or which one do I answer? Because I'm sometimes like that. The key is to know that you're gonna identify with probably almost all of the questions to some degree, but there's going to be certain ones that really stand out that define kind of the more prominent parts of your personality. So just go with your gut answer is the first thing. Don't take too long. And then the other thing I would say is people tend to try to play it safe here, and it's one personality type usually that does it, but they mark 3s. So your answers, you're going to be given choices of 1 through 5 on all of the answers. A 1 would be sometimes or not at all. 1 would be not at all, and then 5 would be the highest mark. And so people tend to try to play it safe and just go straight down with 3s. If you do that, you're not going to get a good answer of your personality type. So we kind of make a rule at the retreats, like you're not allowed to mark 3s. You got to swing one way or the other on it. And so we would recommend that you do that for both this DISC personality test. And then the second part of it, it's all going to come up as kind of the same questions, is spiritual gifts. Spiritual gifts use the same rules that we just talked about. You'll see that we actually put all of the questions or the questions in the book and then gave places to answer, but you're not going to need that because
You're doing it online.
You're going to do it online. And so what you need to do is, after you've gotten results at the end, capture those results because they're going to become part of your My Story page. So your DISC personality test will give you a result of a letter, D, I, S, or C. And a lot of times what it gives you is 2 letters, with one being prominent and the other being secondary. And so, for example, I'm an ID when I get my results back from doing this thing.
And I'm a DI.
Yes, which is why we get along so famously. So spiritual gifts, you'll get some answers from that one as well that highlight what your spiritual gifts might be. There could be questions in there. Look, if you're not a seasoned believer, there might be some questions in there where they don't make sense to you. So clearly that would just be a 1, right? And then we'll talk more about both
on the
of
other
these,
side of the test.
Yeah, both of these assessments. When we come back on the other side, we'll give some good examples and good way to understand what you're working through there. So take the opportunity to pause now, scan the QR code, go through. There's quite a few questions, but it won't take you long. They go really fast, especially if you just hit your first instinct. Pause it here, and we'll catch back up in just a minute. All right, welcome back. So you've done, this is session 7. You've done a personality assessment. You've done the spiritual gifts assessment. Let's talk about the personality assessment first, where you got a couple of letters as your answer. Pastor Joseph, I love when we get to do this. We've done it in church assimilation settings. We've done it at these retreats. It's always a fun time to help people understand these things and see them interact with maybe their spouses over it. Will you walk them through
Absolutely.
the disc?
In fact, sadly, one of the fun things we do when we're doing it in person, we can't do, unfortunately, online, is I typically will ask a few people in the room a few questions about what they do for a living, things about their personality, and then I will tell them up front, this is what your disc personality is going to be. And 99% of
You
the
have
time...
pretty good numbers of success on that.
I'm correct with that, because I really enjoy using this test. Because, like Chris said, obviously it doesn't define who you are, but it certainly gives us a fairly accurate reflection of our personality types, because we all have different personality types and we're born with those personalities. So let's start by this. The DISC stands for dominant, influential or influence, steady or steadiness, and compliance, DISC. I have another way of interpreting those 4. Driver, inspirational, stable, and controlling. Let me break that down a little bit more so you understand once you've done the assessment and you've seen where you fall. I explained that I'm a DI and Chris explained that he's an ID. Well, the D, the driver, the dominant force, is the one who is very self-sufficient and very clear on where he's going, or where she's going, what the rules are, how to get there. They are typically leader types who are Ds. Now, the thing about Ds is actually Navy SEALs are all Ds, because these are the guys who are the special forces. They will go into the most dangerous of places, do the most dangerous of things. They don't need anyone to handhold them through this. Navy SEALs are usually in groups of 6. Everybody knows what their job is and how to go about it. They're intense, they're focused. So the driver is the person who gets things done. When there's crisis and you need a leader, you want a D. The only problem with the D is they leave dead bodies in their wake. The D isn't about how do you feel about this? Do you have energy? Are you strong? Are you ready to go? The D isn't about it.
Yes.
Let's get the job done. So remember, none of these personalities are good or bad. They are what they are.
They are what they are.
It's how you interpret or use those personality types that will determine how good or effective they are. So in crisis, you don't want someone who's just going to sing Kumbaya and hope that everybody is okay. You want someone who will lead you out of crisis. So the D becomes invaluable at that point. Yeah. But you don't want the D in the middle of summer in Florida being the guy who's controlling traffic in your parking lot. He is going to kick everyone out of the church. He's not going to be nice or polite or friendly. He's just, you park. I said, you park there. You don't get to choose where you park. I tell you where to park. Well, you don't want D's leading your parking lot.
D is on mission.
D is on mission,
and,
yes.
I know that 2 of the personality types, to your point, are really task-related.
Task-oriented.
And then 2 of them are very people-oriented. And to your point, none of them are bad.
Yeah.
If we understand that and we're mature in our personality type, we can manage.
Yes. And then we know where best to have you fit into whatever service is going on, because your personality type will best execute. So let's give another example. The I, remember, that's the influencer, but the one that I also call inspirational is the life of the party. Chris doesn't have a bad word to say about anybody. He doesn't know anybody. He's never met a stranger he won't talk to. Chris recovers in a group of people. I, on the other hand, even though I'm a DI, my D makes it such that when I'm done with the task, I need to be on my own. I recover on my own. The I is the inspiration, the life of the party, the one who charges forward, the one who tells everybody, you can do it, you've got this. The I should never build a bridge for you. Because if you have a bridge with mechanical pieces, screws, and so, by the end of the building, the bridge is up, but there are lots of pieces left over, and you're wondering, where do these go? That's not a bridge to trust. Because the I has spent his time worrying or making sure everyone's feeling good. Everyone is loving it, having a great time.
Bridge is going to be pretty.
But
and
the bridge will
it's
be
going to be a great time.
It's going to be a great time,
Yeah.
guaranteed.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be a safe bridge.
Details
are
not so
not
good.
the strength of the eye. And so, again, not good or bad, just excellent for, I want the eye when people are down and things are going tough, and we need someone to come into the room and inspire people and make sure that people understand where we're going, rally people together. That's what you want the eye for. Then the S is the steady or stable. Interestingly enough, 70% of the population are S's.
Thank goodness.
But the S's are the worker bees, if you like. The S's are the ones who say, give me the lines, I'll color inside the lines. The S's do not like change. And the S's need to understand, if there's going to be change, why there is change. So you can't just say to an S, unlike a D or an I, once they've started the project and it's on the run, they get bored. They need to jump onto the next project. Not the S. The S wants just, you've given me the lines, I will color it within those lines for all of eternity. I'm not coloring outside the lines. But if you need to change things, you need to be able to give the S a good enough reason, because the S's do not like change. They're not comfortable with change. So this is a good leadership lesson. If you have majority of S's, especially in your organization, especially because S's, 70% of the population are S's, make sure that you answer the why we're changing something in the organization. Because your S's will not feel good about that change and may not thrive in that change unless they understand the why. But they are the ones who will get the work done. They're the ones who build the bridge. And then you have the C. The C is the compliant or the control. The C is the accountant. Cross every T, dot every I. The C is the guy who says, we're only writing checks on Thursday. Doesn't matter whether writing checks Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday might benefit the organization. The C has said we're writing checks on Thursday. The rules are set. The rules are in place. You cross every T, dot every I. The compliant. But you might think, I don't want a personality like that. Hold on. You absolutely do. Because the C will balance your books. The C will make sure that you're within the framework of the law, within the limits of the law. The C will ensure that you're doing everything, especially as Christ followers. We want to make sure that we're doing everything with integrity, character, and upfront.
Yes.
Where the D and the I are willing to bend the rules a little, because the rules are there to be bent. As far as the D and the I are concerned, the rules are there as guidelines. For the C, the rules are rigid. They are compliance. And if we don't follow the rules, we'll get into trouble. Well, on tax day or audit, if your company gets audited, you're grateful that you have a C running your books. So you see what I mean? All of these personality types. There's no, I don't like that personality. That's the bad person. There are no good or bad personality types. They are what they are. And when you learn how to understand each personality type, then you can place guardstones around for each personality type. Chris said earlier on, that's why we get along. The truth is we do, because we both allow our I's to lead in our relationship, not our D's. Because if we both allowed our D's, I'm rigid and he's rigid, because we're both drivers and leaders. We both have clear-cut ideas and they'll be clashing. But we've chosen, because we're friends, to let our I's lead. So we're very relational. We joke a lot. We get on well, which is why if either one of us did this online course alone, it would probably have a lot of detail, data, and facts, but it would be as boring as heck. But because we're doing it together, we influence each other through our eyes. And that's why it's relational and you can connect to it. That's why the DISC test is so vital. It helps you place yourself and others in your organization exactly where you should be, and to understand why you respond or others respond a certain way to a certain stimulus.
I love that you brought a really valid point. So we're talking about these assessments as a measure for yourself, but it also brings so much understanding to the other people in the room. So because I know that my wife is SC, right? I understand. I can understand the tendencies and why she needs details and why she's so good at organizing things and things of that nature. And so it really is helpful, not just internally, but looking outward and understanding other people and giving some margin to be able to.
You know what's fascinating about that, Chris? You're an ID. I'm a DI. You married an SC. I married a CS. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
That our wives have the same personality types, just reversed in the order of dominance. So my wife is a CS. Your wife is an SC.
Yeah.
You are an ID. I'm a DI. It's these personality tests. If you do them well, they really help in navigating relationships well.
Yeah, there's so much to be learned from here. I can tell you, I actually took a DISC assessment that was way longer than the one that we're offering here. It
Yes,
was a
that's the
pretty
full,
pretty intense one, and it gave back an immense report. And so I remember getting that report and reading it, and it highlighted pretty well the downside of my personality, which is something to look at to understand, right? So I read it, and it said I was selfish, and it said these horrible things, right? I really struggled with it. So I handed it to Lori, to my wife, and I said, "Hey, babe, will you read this and just tell me what you think?" And she read it, and she said, "Wow, that's crazy. It's so weird because the disc is pretty good, but this isn't you." And I said, "Well, I appreciate you saying that,
But actually,
but I have to tell you, like deep down, after I had time to think about it, it is me. That's why it hurt me to kind of read it. But as I read on in the assessment, they talk about there is a mature I and an immature I. And so as you progress through life at our age, we've learned naturally to sort of compensate and maybe suppress some of the negative traits of these personality types.
it's not just suppress. Even the Enneagram tells you the same thing. What it is you at your healthiest iteration versus you at your unhealthiest iteration. And as you get older and more settled, more stable, you feel the need to prove less to impress people. And so you become healthier. And so that's you at your healthiest iteration is when you express the best parts of your personality. That's
We love
really
we,
what it
we
is.
love going through this. Like you said, it's so much more fun when people are in the room and you can kind of have fun, and they're taking the test. And as you're explaining, you can see wives kind of elbowing the husband. That's
exactly.
you.
Yeah.
So thanks for going along on that journey with us. Let's talk about spiritual gifts, because this one's fun too. This is the one, I think DISC for the most part. There's not a lot of surprises to people. They'll say, "Yeah,
True.
I see that.
Yeah.
I see that in myself."
We just give them
I
language
understand
now.
it. That's why they're elbowing
Yes,
each other.
we just give them language
Yes.
for what it is. Yeah.
But spiritual gifts can be one where we have people in the room that are like, that one's not me.
me, prophet?
Yeah. Yeah, Pastor Shepherd is one of those that comes up, and people say that's not me. I
Until
love
you
that,
explain
because
as you observe.
you're right. It's not you, is what we tell them. It's God in you. That is a spiritual gift that
spiritual
God
gift,
has
yeah.
placed in you, that as you learn how to get out of your own way and allow the Spirit to function, that is you. And sometimes it's a little wrapped up in the explanation, right? Where people will read that explanation and be like, I don't know. It's sort of a misinterpretation thinking. So for the Pastor Shepherd thing's a good example. If it said Pastor Shepherd and they think, oh, I'm supposed to have a job as a pastor at a church, but that's not at all what that's suggesting, right? I mean, that could be one way to live it out,
yeah,
but there's
not all
multiple
there is
ways
to it, yes.
to express these spiritual gifts. So one good example I love that my wife got exhortation. And so I didn't even know what that word was before going through this process years ago. And it says the gift of exhortation is the divine strength or ability to encourage others through written or spoken word and biblical truth. And then it gives scripture behind it to say, here's some examples
of what the scripture says about it.
what scripture says about it. And so I love it. And so I talked to her about this, and this idea of like spoken word. Initially, early on in her walk, she was mortified if we asked her to pray out loud. She would not. She would even get very mad at me if I volunteered her for praying out loud or anything, or speaking that sort of stuff out loud to people. And so we went back and looked, and I said, but you have this gift of exhortation, of building people up. And so I went back and looked at it, and it says through the written or spoken word and biblical truth. And so one of the things that we decided is, why don't you start writing encouraging notes to other women that are coming into our family of believers here, and doing it that way. And it's written, it's a prayer that's written and builds them up, and you're beginning to build that language, right? And now, after doing that for a little while, she has the ability to, that language feels more comfortable to her. So there was a good example of this idea of, that's not me, but then expressing it, finding a way to express it and showing that it was.
Yeah.
So do you want to touch on a couple of these gifts, perhaps, maybe ones that people get hung up on, or
Yeah, let's look at a few. Let's look at 2 or 3 of them. I typically say pick your top 5, because you'll find that some of them you actually get the same score. So in this case, I don't say your top 2 or top 3. Pick your top 5 is what I say. And as an example, mine are, and not necessarily in the order of score, but my top 5 are BMNSV, which is the apostleship, knowledge, leadership, pastor, shepherd, and teaching. So I wish giving was more, or missionary, but apparently I'm not such a high scorer in those. I say that tongue in cheek. Obviously, these are the strengths that God has given me. They're spiritual gifts. And so let's look at the apostleship as a prime example. The gift of apostleship is the divine strength or ability to pioneer new churches and ministries through planting, overseeing, and training.
Wow.
Well, it's interesting that one of the things I do is consult with churches. I consult with them on leadership development, on setting systems and structures to help their churches grow, mainly not just in numbers on Sunday, though that is part of growth, but in making sure their staff is healthy and feels valued and seen. So that is the gift of apostleship. Now, apostleship doesn't only operate because you are planting churches every Sunday. When it talks about pioneering new churches and ministries through planting, it may be that when new churches are being planted, you're the guy who comes in and helps them set order and systems. You do that across the world. I've traveled to 176 countries doing ministry, speaking in churches, in leadership development, in organizational management. That is the gift of apostleship. You may be doing that in a secular context. In other words, you may not be doing it in churches. You may be going into secular organizations and helping them build systems and structures and helping them understand how to be visionary, how to oversee and train their staff so that their staff are healthy and feel valued and want to give more in their work. That is the gift of apostleship. What an
amazing parallel.
Yeah, it's the gift of apostleship. Yeah. It plays out in every context if you operate in that gift.
I'm so glad you highlighted that, like how it might translate in what some people, they see that there's this line between my faith and my work. And so I love that you just highlighted, look, no, these spiritual gifts are something that can play out in any setting, and our faith should play out in every setting.
Well, I want to give another example, because what people haven't seen yet as we've run this online course is that the guy who filmed our online course, who sat on the other side of the camera, who set up thousands of dollars worth of equipment that he owns, has the gift of knowledge. Now, I don't even know if he knows this, but I'm pretty sure that when he takes the test, knowledge will be one of his strengths.
Yeah.
But am I just talking about the knowledge of the scriptures? No, I'm talking about knowledge in general, because the gift of knowledge is the gift of knowledge. He didn't go to school to learn videography, to learn color filtering, to learn lighting, to learn all of these things. He's gifted in it. He's studied, he's researched, he's done his own thing. And he has produced some of the best videos that I've seen. I don't say that because he's producing this. I've actually paid him. Well, I underpaid him, if I'm being honest. But I paid him to do a video for my business. And so did you.
We love you, Kenny.
So we took advantage of him, but we love him. Yeah, but the fact is, his knowledge of how to set scenes, set the correct lighting, the correct angles, even the right background music. That's all knowledge.
Yes.
So it translates beyond just, oh, I know the scriptures, I know where this verse is. That's good. And that is knowledge. But this knowledge, that these gifts speak to you being able to apply the scriptures, the entirety of the gifts that God has given you in every aspect of life, which is what makes Kenny better than a lot of people who set up businesses to do this, because they may not have the gift of knowledge. They've studied, they've researched, so they've learned the theory. And then they can apply the theory and do a decent job. But one with knowledge will do a significantly better job, because they go beyond just, oh, what does a camera do? How do I set the camera? They go beyond that. They begin to ask questions of the camera that maybe even the people who made the camera didn't realize you would ask. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So these are just examples of that. I could go on and on, but I think we need to move on
We
to
should
the final.
probably move on to the final assessment. I would say one other thing about spiritual gifts, and that is, man, if you could take your spiritual gifts and step off a ledge for God. So if you
like that
had one of
expression.
those
Step off a ledge.
that made you, I can tell you this is why I'm sitting in this chair, is because years ago I felt God call us to do this care counseling, to use our mess to carry out his message to other people that were struggling with the same thing. And it's where I learned about the Holy Spirit, about God in us, about this idea of doing something that made me feel sick to my stomach, saying, God, are you sure? Do you have my back? Because this is way beyond me. So I just love this idea. And we've been able to see people that have come through the program, that have identified what these spiritual gifts are, and then taken a risk, gone out and said, okay, I'm going to do something with that. And I'm not just going to do something with that in the space that I play right now. I'm going to step off the ledge in a whole new space and try something new for God's glory. And there's been these amazing stories that have happened along the way. And so we don't take this stuff lightly. This is all shaping your story. So it's saying that take your results from your disc and your spiritual gifts test, make sure that they make it on the My Story page in the back, which is the collection of all of these different things. So there's
Excellent.
one last assessment. We're closing this one out, okay? And then we're done with your story part of it. It's the 5 love languages. That might seem weird, because you might say, well, this isn't a couples counseling, so why would we do the 5 love languages? For this reason, because I think that the 5 love languages really bridges the gap relationally to help you understand that how you receive love, how my wife receives love, is different than how I receive love. So my wife was not big on gifts. So if I'm buying her gifts to express my love to her, it really is not impacting her like I would hope it is, right? And so I'm trying to communicate love, and I see a lot of couples struggle with this, where they say, well, I do all these things, and you're saying I don't love you. So again, it's not about necessarily a couple. It's even in our relationship as friends, we have this understanding of the things that speak to you. You love unique gifts, not just a regular,
not a
something
thoughtless
that
gift,
has a story to it. It can be from a value standpoint. It can be a very low value,
but it must have relevance.
Yes, but there's got to be a story behind it, a thought behind it. And so this 5 love languages, we won't come back after this and talk about that one. It's just another assessment for you to do on your own, capture the answers in the back, to create a dialogue for yourself, to understand and relate to others, and maybe even communicate with other people around you. Like, oh, this is how I receive love. And so would encourage you to do this 3rd assessment. That's the last one. We have now wrapped up the your story part of this program. This is
And session 7.
session 7, and so next will be on session 8, and we're just going to talk about now, okay, we've seen God's story. We've now really dug beneath the surface level on his and your story, and gone through your story at a pretty deep level. How is it possible to bring these things together? Does my story have impact on the greater kingdom story? Does God's story, the story of the Bible, am I included in what he's still doing there? And so we'll come back for session 8. Thank you so much for going on the journey with us again.